Will Castro next, but let's first go to the Democrat side of things with former delegate Robert Underwood. Good morning, Robert.
Today, Chris, good morning, Sabrina, and good morning to all of your thousands of listeners. Happy to be here.
Thank you. It's actually millions, but
Well, I'm sorry I underplayed it, but I did just
let's just
I just wanted to say that this is of course a very difficult time given all the conditions we're in, and I just wanted to congratulate the way you handle it by bringing on people and giving them an opportunity to explain the actual situation so that people are informed. Sometimes, of course, they don't like the information, but nevertheless, the informational value of how you approach this is, and the fact that you're using Zoom in this very creative way is a lesson for all of us, and how you've adapted and how you continue to inform. And so I think both of you and your whole team there, Jason and everyone else, needs a little lifting up for your efforts.
thank you.
Thanks.
Robert,
Stop it some more.
stop it some more. And let's
Stop
talk
it.
about that when you talk about adapting, right? How we've all had to kind of adapt to this life under COVID. What about campaigning? Right? This has got
Well,
to be
it's
the
a very difficult and very different environment. Of course, we had a whole series of rallies planned, and exciting things, and roadside wavings, and all those things are sort of put on the side, not just because they're not just because they're not consistent with the governor's orders or the governor's declaration of the conditions. They seem out of sync with what people are going through. People are facing very serious conditions at home, and very challenging situations, trying to make sure their children remain educated in this environment. Senior citizens who normally go to senior citizen centers are not going there. There's a lot of pressures that are building up inside homes. Some people are leaving to go to work in approved facilities, and they come back. So there's a lot of uncertainty. And of course, people are over 35,000. I don't even know what the number is. Maybe as many as 40,000 people are unemployed, and we need to find a way to get them back to work eventually. And all of those conditions create a lot of anxiety and concern. And certainly, in trying to campaign with a message of what your plan for the future, it sort of seems out of sync with what they're going through, and out of sensitivity. I think we pulled our ads, and we've also, of course, didn't participate in any of the activities that I know our campaign and perhaps other campaigns were considering. This past Sunday is supposed to be the big Sunday rally, or
Right.
motorcade, or drive-through, or whatever you could come up with. And of course, all of that is now laid on the side, and we continue to reach out individually through phone calls, and of course through social media. We have vibrant. We'll go back to live streaming sometime this week, and we'll take it. We'll take it year by moment by moment, and kind of having a sensitivity to how people, what people are experiencing. And some of the stories that Lillian told, and some of the conditions that people are facing are very serious, and require a lot of attention by policymakers. But most of all, they kind of like trying to figure out what is a typical family going through, and how are they hurting, and how can we help not just alleviate some of the conditions they're going through, but how we can give them a hope for the future.
Congressman, you said that you would have had the rally this past weekend, but because of obviously COVID, you couldn't. So if you could, then give us just an abbreviated.
And we weren't going to have a
speech.
protest either.
If you could give us just an abbreviated version of what you would have said if you were giving your speech at that rally.
Well,
You like the way I
of course,
preface that?
of course. Well, it's kind of awkward, but, to give a sort of a campaign speech,
Well, I mean,
So basically,
go ahead.
I'll just give a thumbnail sketch of what our campaign is about. Our campaign is about, we started off, and the theme is still there, trustworthy leadership, leadership that the people of Guam can trust. And that has many dimensions to it. Everything we do is based on honesty and integrity. And we focus on three specific issues, which is our economic recovery, the extension of healthcare, and educational reform, and how we can build a federal Guam connection to help make those things possible in creative and collaborative ways. I think that the delegates' role is to try to find a common agenda as much as possible, because there's lots of differing opinions, a common agenda for Guam to kind of collaborate and cooperate with various sectors of the community and the local political leadership, and then take that agenda and fight like hell for it in Washington, D.C. And so that's the sense of, I think, the kind of consensus building leadership and trustworthy leadership, which I think I've provided in my previous service as delegate, and certainly in my previous time as president of the University of Guam. And that's, there are a lot of specific issues and a lot of specific ideas. Certainly we need a bump up in compact impact aid. I have a platform to ask for $100 million a year and tie that to the negotiation of the compacts of free association. We need a whole veterans package, and that veterans package about building some kind of model like they use at Tripler Hospital, collaboration between VA and an existing military hospital to create a veterans care center here, a regional veterans care center here in Guam. Will not just help the veterans, it'll also help the whole medical community, because we'd have a whole different system, expand Medicaid to make sure that the COFA citizens are eligible for it, and relieve some of the pressures that we have on it, and to continue to fight for a bigger share of that Medicaid dollar to come from the federal government itself rather than local coffers. So, and of course, educationally, it really is important that we put a tablet in with every child and make the Wi-Fi accessible to everybody. I've talked to teachers and they're telling me that as many as in some classes, only 5 or 6 are connected all the time, when even if they're doing internet classes, even if they're doing classes online. So it's kind of a hit and miss system. And so we need to make sure that moves forward. And of course, just the whole way that we have a relationship with the military. The military is our most significant partner and also our most significant consideration as we move forward. And so I've always made it clear that I think sitting on the Armed Services Committee allows the delegate to be able to manage that from the ground up. And that's certainly something that I want to do.
Let me cut in here, Robert, on that point specifically. How would our situation or could it have been different if our current delegate had gotten that seat on the armed services as we traditionally have had? And in what ways would that kind of change the conversation, the dialogue that we're now having with the military buildup?
Well, I think if we had sat on the Armed Services Committee, that's where you insert a number of asks and requests and amendments. And, in addition to relieving us on some pressure on H-2B and H-1 visas, we could have asked for a more defined partnership with the military in dealing with the pandemic. We could have asked for a greater amount of money for a public health center that is being contemplated. We could have asked for increased role for the National Guard. We could have, I know that there's kind of a trying to figure out what the military is going to do next with their technology, trying to figure out how that's going to be built up in Guam and how the local community can profit from that. All of those things are done from the ground up. They come from attending briefings and understanding the dynamics of it. And of course, holding them accountable, holding the military accountable when they don't do well. I think the example of how the Magua, the site, the archaeological site was dealt with is an example where it didn't go well. So we should have held them accountable for that. And all of those things are only, you get the respect of people when you are engaged with them. And that active engagement is still the major partnership that the people of Guam have with Guam for our economy, for our economic future, even for our technological future. All of those things can be navigated directly through the military. So that Armed Services Committee is really critical, and we could have helped manage that to our advantage. There was a legislation passed early in this Congress that called for 20 trauma centers to be built by DOD in conjunction with various communities in response to the pandemic. And actually, it preceded the pandemic, trying to figure out how we could have been one of those 20 centers. All of those things could have been navigated within the Armed Services Committee. And so it's really key to critically understanding the basis for our economic recovery, the basis for our economic future, and the basis for the protection of our land and our cultural resources. And I think a number of opportunities were missed, not because they weren't thought of, but you have to engage it from the ground up. And I'll just give you one example on this, because I told the Rotary Club that the main objective should be in trying to profit from to increase the local benefit from the military buildup, including identifying contractors, benefiting local contractors, and benefiting local engineering companies and archaeological firms and environmental firms, all of that. That's done by active engagement with the Department of Defense. You engage with them, you ask for briefings from it. We started to do that in the past when I was still in office there. We did it with the local military. We did it with the local military when I was president of the University of Guam, and we almost tripled our contracting portfolio between the University of Guam and NAFTA.
Congressman, you've got 1 minute left. So we acknowledge the fact that, hopefully if you are elected, we'll see you in the House Natural, not House Natural, but the House Armed Services Committee.
Armed Services.
And maybe also the House Natural Resources Committee.
Right. Of course, the Resources Committee,
right.
Because the Resources Committee is where the Organic Act is amended and has oversight over the future of territory. So that's very important as well.
So you've got about less than a
now,
minute to wrap it up and give your final comments.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you have an opportunity, even in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic. We still have to make a serious choice about our future in Washington, D.C. Our future in Washington, D.C. is based on our collective vision and our trust in that one voice that we have in Congress to unite us here at home and fight like heck for us there in Washington, D.C. I believe that I can be that voice based on my previous experience. I know how to collaborate and work with everyone, and I know how to fight too at the same time. So this is the responsibility of that one voice that you have in Washington, D.C. It should be a trusted voice. It should be a trustworthy voice. And it should be a voice that you have confidence in, that is carrying out your agenda and your hopes and aspirations for the future.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Thanks, Congressman.
Thank you.
Okay, wash your hands.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Remember the three W's. The three W's. I've replaced the three R's. Wash your hands, watch your distance, and wear your mask.
Got
All
it.
right.
Think
There you
Tom
go.
Shea said.
I see you. Former Congressman Robert Underwood, of course, a Democratic challenge.